The desert stretched endlessly under the burning sun. Sand rolled across the ground in restless waves, carried by a dry wind that whispered secrets of the past. Daniel stood at the edge of a dig site, wiping sweat from his brow as he studied the deep pit his team had carved into the earth. For months they had searched for something that seemed like a myth. A hidden chamber beneath the oldest pyramid, older than the reigns recorded in history. Daniel was not the leader of a large institution or a wealthy adventurer. He was a man driven by curiosity. Since childhood he had loved stories of ancient Egypt, tales of kings, tombs, and treasures buried in sand. Yet he wanted more than gold or fame. He wanted truth. When he found strange carvings in a forgotten manuscript, he followed the clues here, where the sun scorched the desert floor and silence ruled the ruins. The team had worked in shifts, digging carefully, brushing away stone and sand until a strange echoing sound revealed itself. One night, while lanterns burned in the darkness, a worker struck a slab that rang like metal. Excitement rushed through the camp, and Daniel ordered them to dig slower, more carefully. Hours later, they uncovered a doorway sealed by stone blocks smoother than any they had seen before. Symbols covered the surface, not only Egyptian hieroglyphs, but also shapes that looked like spirals, stars, and lines that glowed faintly under the lantern light. Daniel placed his palm on the stone. A faint vibration ran through his hand as though the slab itself was alive. His heart raced. He whispered to himself that they had found something that was not only ancient, but also waiting to be discovered. By morning, the sun revealed the chamber. The team lowered ropes and descended. Daniel was the first to touch the floor of the hidden room, his boots sinking into a layer of fine dust that had not been disturbed for thousands of years. He raised his lantern, and the chamber came alive with reflections. The walls were covered in carvings. Scenes of pyramids stretched upward into the sky, beams of light shining from their tips toward stars above. A golden bridge-like structure appeared again and again, always shown carrying figures across to a realm beyond. Some figures wore crowns, others plain robes, as if all people could walk the bridge. At the far end of the chamber stood the bridge itself, rising from the stone floor, crafted from shining gold that had not lost its glow. It was not a flat bridge, but an arch that stretched from one side of the room to the other. Hovering slightly above the floor as if untouched by time, thin lines of light pulsed across its surface, moving like veins filled with energy. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He approached slowly, each step echoing in the silence. His fingers brushed the side of the golden arch and warmth spread through his skin. It was not cold metal, but something alive, something humming with power. He turned back to his team, their faces wide with fear and awe. "Do you see this?" Daniel asked, his voice trembling. "This is not a tomb. This is something else." One of the men shook his head. "It should not be here. Gold cannot shine like this after thousands of years. This is not natural." Daniel nodded. His thoughts swirled, and memories of old texts returned to him. Ancient Egyptians had written of a path to the afterlife, a journey across fields of light, rivers of stars, and bridges that connected the mortal to the eternal. He had always believed those words were symbols, myths to comfort people facing death. But what if they were not symbols? What if they were instructions written by those who had seen the bridge? As night fell again, Daniel stayed in the chamber while the others returned to camp. Alone, he sat near the golden arch, lantern flickering, shadows stretching across the carvings. He thought of the pharaohs, men who claimed to be sons of the gods. What if their power came not from belief, but from something like this bridge? He leaned closer, studying the base. More symbols ran across it, a mixture of familiar hieroglyphs and shapes he could not read. Yet as he stared, his mind began to link them together, as if some hidden part of him already understood. Words formed in his head, phrases about passage, light, and eternity. He shook his head, unsure if he was imagining it or if the bridge itself was whispering. A sudden hum filled the chamber, low at first, then rising like the sound of wind rushing through stone tunnels. Daniel stood quickly, lantern shaking in his hand. The golden lines across the bridge grew brighter, glowing with steady rhythm like a heartbeat. The carvings on the walls shimmered, and for a moment he thought he saw the figures move, walking across the golden bridge into the stars. Fear and wonder battled inside him. He whispered a single thought to himself. This was no ordinary discovery. This was a message left by people who had known far more than they revealed, a secret hidden for millennia, waiting for the right moment to be found. Daniel's lantern flickered. He stared at the bridge, its glow steady against the dark chamber, and felt the pull of something greater than treasure or history. This was a path, and he knew it would soon call him to step across. The chamber was silent again by morning, but Daniel felt the memory of the hum still inside his chest. He barely slept. His thoughts circled around the golden bridge, the glowing lines, and the whisper that seemed to rise from the walls. The rest of the team gathered near the entrance, speaking in low voices. They were afraid, yet none of them could step away. Curiosity had its own chains, and it held them all. Daniel placed both hands on the side of the bridge, pressing firmly. The metal was warm, as if it had absorbed the sun. He turned to the carvings once more. On the far wall, a scene showed a pharaoh standing with arms raised, his face proud, his body surrounded by light. Behind him, the golden bridge stretched toward a cluster of stars. He stepped back. "This is not only a burial chamber," he said aloud, voice steady. "This is a message." Before anyone could respond, the bridge lit again. Golden light surged across its arch, brighter than before, and the hum returned. The sound grew louder, filling the chamber like a chorus of hidden voices. Dust fell from the ceiling as though the stone itself trembled with power. The team cried out in fear, but Daniel stood still, his eyes wide. The glow spread across the floor, forming lines that connected to the carvings on the wall. One by one, the figures began to shine. Then, as if a veil lifted, an image appeared in the center of the chamber. It was not smoke, not shadow, but a figure of light. The image shaped itself into the form of a man. His face was sharp, his eyes deep, his crown unmistakable. It was the likeness of a pharaoh. His robe shimmered like sunlight on water, and his staff glowed with the same golden energy as the bridge. The team gasped. One man dropped to his knees, whispering prayers. Another covered his face in fear. Daniel's body tensed, yet his heart felt drawn forward. He stepped closer, raising his lantern. The pharaoh spoke. His voice echoed as if carried by both stone and air, deep and steady, filled with command yet touched by sorrow. At first the words came in ancient Egyptian, the language Daniel had studied but never mastered. Yet as the sound grew stronger, the words shifted. Slowly, they turned into clear speech that everyone could understand. "I am not gone," the pharaoh declared. "I crossed the bridge of gold. I was guided by the builders from the stars." Daniel's breath caught. The builders. The word echoed in his mind like a bell. He thought of the strange spirals and star shapes carved beside the hieroglyphs. They had never been Egyptian symbols. Perhaps they belonged to the ones the pharaoh called builders. The image raised his staff. The light brightened, casting shadows across the chamber. "My people built pyramids as signs, as guides, but they misunderstood. They believed the bridge was for the dead. They called it the path to the afterlife. But I tell you, it was not built for the dead. It was built for the living. It was built to carry us to the stars." Murmurs broke out among the team. Some shook their heads, refusing to believe. Others stared in wonder. Daniel could not look away. His chest tightened as he realized the truth. The myths he had studied, the texts that spoke of journeys after death, may have been echoes of something real, something forgotten. The pharaoh's image lowered his staff. His eyes, though formed of light, seemed to rest directly on Daniel. "You have found the bridge, seeker. But know this truth. It is not a prize. It is a test. Only those who walk with pure heart may cross. Those who seek power will fall, and the bridge will close forever." The light dimmed for a moment, then flared again. The voice dropped lower, filled with warning. "The time has come again. The builders watch. They wait to see if your kind is ready." Then the glow faded. The hum quieted until only silence remained. The image dissolved like mist, leaving only the golden arch shining faintly in the dark chamber. Daniel realized he was shaking. He lowered his lantern, staring at the floor. His team looked at him, waiting for answers he did not have. He wanted to speak, but words failed him. Hours passed, yet the memory of the voice clung to him. The pharaoh had spoken of the builders, of a bridge not meant for the dead but for the living. He had spoken of a test. Daniel felt both awe and fear. He knew that if the world learned of this, armies and governments would come. They would not seek wisdom. They would seek control. That night he sat again near the golden arch. The desert wind whistled faintly through cracks in the stone above. He touched the bridge lightly, his palm warm against the golden surface. He whispered to himself, not the dead, the living, a path to the stars. The words of the Pharaoh echoed again in his mind. A test, a warning, a choice. Daniel understood one thing clearly. The discovery was not only about the past, it was about the future. Daniel stood in the chamber long after the others had left. The voice of the Pharaoh replayed in his mind again and again. Not for the dead, but for the living, a test, a path to the stars. He stared at the golden bridge, its faint glow steady in the shadows. He felt as if it were waiting for him, calling him. His hand trembled as he reached forward. He did not know what would happen if he stepped onto it. Would it carry him to another place, or would it destroy him if he was unworthy? The next morning, Daniel gathered the team. He told them what he intended to do. Fear filled their faces. One begged him not to try. Another said the bridge was sacred, not meant to be touched. But Daniel's curiosity burned brighter than fear. He could not walk away from what might be the greatest discovery in human history. He stood at the foot of the arch. The golden surface shone brighter as his foot neared it, as if responding to his presence. His chest tightened. He whispered to himself, "If this is the test, then I must face it." He placed his foot on the bridge. Instantly, a rush of warmth spread through his body. The floor beneath him no longer felt solid stone. It felt alive, humming with energy that vibrated through his bones. His team cried out, but their voices seemed far away. Daniel stepped further. Light surged upward from the bridge, surrounding him in a golden glow. The air thickened, heavy yet strangely calm. His skin tingled, his breath caught, and then his body felt weightless. For a moment, the world vanished. Darkness surrounded him, endless and vast. Stars appeared, millions of them, scattered across an infinite sky. A golden path stretched ahead, crossing through the void like a ribbon of light. Daniel stood upon it, suspended between galaxies. His heart pounded, but he forced himself to keep moving. He walked. Each step carried him forward, yet he felt no sense of time. He looked down and saw Earth, small and blue, turning slowly far below. A lump rose in his throat as he realized how fragile it looked, how tiny against the endless stars. A voice echoed in his mind. It was not the Pharaoh this time. It was softer, calm, like many voices speaking as one. "Seeker, you have stepped upon the path." Daniel froze. His eyes darted around, but he saw no one, only the golden bridge stretching forward. "Who are you?" he whispered. "We are the builders," the voice replied. "We guided your Pharaoh long ago. We gave him the path so that humanity might reach beyond its world, but your people misunderstood. They called it death. They turned it into myth. Still, we waited. Now you walk the bridge again." Daniel's mouth went dry. He forced himself to speak. "Why me? I'm no king." "I am no chosen one. I only came here to learn." "That is why you were allowed," the builders answered. "The bridge does not open for those who come with greed. It does not answer to those who seek power. It listens only to those who seek truth." Daniel felt his knees weaken. He had always thought of himself as ordinary, yet now he was standing on a bridge that reached across space, speaking to voices that claimed to have shaped history. The path stretched on, and soon a great light appeared at its end. Daniel moved toward it, his steps faster now. The glow grew until it swallowed everything around him. For a heartbeat, he felt himself pulled forward through light, through warmth, through a force that wrapped around him like water. Then he opened his eyes. He was no longer in the desert chamber. He stood inside a colossal hall, walls high as mountains, arches glittering with golden patterns. The air was cool, filled with a faint hum. Strange symbols glowed along the walls, the same star shapes he had seen carved in the pyramid chamber. At the far end of the hall, tall figures stood. They were shaped like humans, but their bodies shimmered faintly, as though made from light and matter together. Their eyes glowed softly, not with harsh fire, but with calm strength. They wore robes lined with threads of gold, and their movements were graceful, almost like flowing water. Daniel's breath caught. He knew at once these were the builders. One stepped forward. "You have crossed," it said, its voice echoing inside his mind more than through his ears. "Few of your kind have done so. The Pharaoh was the last. He stood here just as you do now. He was given knowledge to guide his people, yet they turned it into worship and fear. We did not interfere again. But now you stand here, and the question remains. Is humanity ready to walk among the stars, or must it wait still longer?" Daniel swallowed hard. His heart beat fast, but he stood tall. "I don't know if humanity is ready," he admitted. "But I know it must try. We cannot stay on Earth forever. We must learn or we will fall. The builders were silent. Their glowing eyes studied him. Daniel felt as if their gaze passed through his soul, weighing his words, testing his heart. Finally, the first builder nodded. Then the test begins. Daniel stood in the vast hall, his eyes locked on the figures before him. The builders moved with a calm presence, their glowing robes flowing like mist, their eyes shining with steady light. He felt both fear and wonder. He wanted to kneel, yet his curiosity held him firm. The first builder raised a hand and the hall shifted. The golden walls rippled like water, then cleared into images. Daniel gasped as he saw earth, but not the earth he knew. Green valleys stretched wide, rivers cut through land, and skies burned with brilliant stars untouched by smoke or city lights. He saw tribes gathering, building fires, and raising their heads toward the heavens. The builder's voice filled the air, calm yet filled with weight. When your kind was still young, we watched. We guided the first steps, not with force, but with gifts. We showed you how to shape stone, how to mark the stars, how to measure time. We taught your pharaohs, your priests, your leaders, but always with care. For the path must be chosen, not forced. The images changed. Daniel saw pyramids rising. Their massive stones moved not only by human hands, but guided by beams of light from the builders. He saw pharaohs standing on golden platforms speaking to the sky. He saw scribes carving symbols that glowed with energy, mixing words of men with the signs of the stars. Another builder stepped forward. The bridge you found was one of many. We left them across your world. Some were lost to sand and sea. Some were broken. Only few remain. They were never built for death, as your people later believed. They were gates, paths for the living to cross, to meet us, to learn, to join. Daniel's chest tightened as he listened. The weight of history pressed on him. All his years of study, all his nights reading old texts, and now the truth stood before him. The afterlife was not only myth. It was a memory of what had once been real. He spoke slowly, his voice trembling. Why did you stop? If you gave such knowledge, why leave us to fall into wars and darkness? The builders were silent for a long moment. Then the first one answered, Because your kind was not ready. The Pharaoh who crossed stood here as you do now. He was given wisdom to guide his people, yet pride and greed twisted the gift. His people raised temples and called him a god. They turned bridges into tombs, knowledge into chains. They believed only kings could walk the path. The truth was lost. Daniel lowered his head. He could almost see the story unfold. The Pharaoh must have returned with tales of stars, of builders, of a bridge beyond death. His people, unable to understand, shaped it into religion and myth. Over time, the truth became buried under ritual and fear. The walls shifted again. Daniel saw the Pharaoh standing tall, bathed in light, speaking to crowds who bowed before him. He saw armies march under his banner, using the symbol of the golden bridge as power. Then the image cracked and faded. The builder's voice grew stern. We cannot allow our gifts to become weapons. So we closed the bridges. We let your kind walk its own road to learn through time. We watched from afar. Daniel's heart ached. He thought of human history, of wars and empires, of countless struggles. How different might the world have been if knowledge had been used with care instead of greed. He looked up at the builders, his voice steady. And now, why let me cross? Why open the bridge again? The second builder stepped closer, eyes glowing brighter. Because you came not as a king, not as a conqueror, but as a seeker. You did not come with armies or crowns. You came with questions. That is why the bridge answered. And that is why the test begins with you. Daniel felt his throat tighten. He was just one man, a scholar with little more than curiosity. Now these beings spoke as if the weight of humanity rested on his shoulders. The builders turned, and the hall shifted once more. Beyond them appeared a view of stars, endless and vast, with golden paths stretching across them like threads in a great web. Daniel's eyes widened. Each golden line linked worlds to worlds, bridges connecting civilizations. He realized Earth was not the only place touched by the builders. There were others, perhaps countless others, who had been given paths to the stars. The builder's voice lowered. You are not the first. Others have walked their bridges. Some have risen to join us. Others have failed and lost their path. Now humanity stands at the edge. The bridge is open again. What will your kind choose? Daniel swallowed hard. He thought of his team back in the chamber, of governments and powers who would soon learn of this discovery. He thought of greed, of war, of hunger for control. But he also thought of hope, of the human spirit that reached for the unknown, that built ships to cross seas, that built machines to reach the sky. He raised his chin. I cannot speak for all of humanity, but I can say this. We are not perfect, but we try. We fall, but we rise again. We fight, but we also build. If the bridge is a test, then let us try. Do not close it yet. Give us the chance to walk it. The builders watched him in silence. Their glowing eyes seemed to pierce through him, weighing his heart, his truth. The hall grew still, the hum of energy steady and strong. Finally, the first builder nodded. Then we will see. But remember this. The bridge is not a gift. It is a responsibility. If your kind fails again, the path will close and it will never open. Daniel drew in a deep breath. He understood the weight of their words. The bridge was not only his discovery, it was humanity's chance, perhaps its final one. Daniel returned through the golden path with a heart heavier than when he had stepped onto it. The builder's warning echoed in his mind. The bridge was not a prize, it was a responsibility. If humanity used it with greed, it would close forever. The light faded, and he found himself once more in the chamber beneath the pyramid. His team gasped when he appeared. Some cried out in relief, others in shock. Hours had passed for them, though Daniel felt as if he had been gone only moments. His skin still carried the faint warmth of the bridge, his mind still ringing with the voices of the builders. "Where did you go?" one of the men asked, his voice shaking. Daniel looked at the glowing arch. He struggled to find words. How could he explain what he had seen? How could he make them understand the weight of it? Finally, he spoke. "It is not a tomb. It is not a bridge for the dead. It is a path to the stars. It is a test." The team murmured in disbelief. Some shook their heads, others argued in whispers. Fear grew among them. They wanted to leave, to seal the chamber and pretend they had never seen it. But Daniel knew the truth could not be buried again. That night, as the desert grew cold, Daniel sat alone outside the camp. He gazed at the stars, wondering if the builders watched him even now. He thought of what would happen once word spread. Nations would fight for control. Armies would march to seize it. The bridge would become a weapon instead of a path. He clenched his fists. That could not be allowed. But the secret was already slipping from his hands. One of the workers, too, afraid of what they had found, had sent a message beyond the dig. By dawn, strangers arrived. Officials dressed in desert uniforms, their faces stern, their eyes sharp. They questioned the team, demanded entry, and soon stood in the chamber themselves, staring at the golden arch. Daniel tried to warn them. "It is not what you think. It cannot be taken, cannot be controlled. If you step with greed, it will reject you." The leader of the officials, a tall man named Rashid, looked at him with cold eyes. "Everything can be controlled. If this bridge is real, then it belongs to the state. You will share what you know." Daniel's chest tightened. He remembered the Pharaoh's warning, remembered the builder's words. If greed touched the bridge, it would close. Humanity's chance would be lost. He stood firm, his voice steady, though his heart raced. It does not belong to anyone. It was meant for all people, not for power. Rashid's eyes narrowed. "Careful, Daniel. Secrets like this can be dangerous. You cannot protect it alone." Soldiers guarded the chamber that night, their rifles gleaming under lantern light. Daniel sat outside, restless, watching the sands shift under the moon. He knew the moment would come when they would try to force the bridge to work for them. He feared what might happen when they did. The next morning, his fears proved true. Rashid himself stepped onto the golden arch, his head high, his voice filled with pride. "If this is a path, then I will walk it first." The bridge glowed as before, but this time the hum was harsh, the light sharp and uneven. Rashid staggered, his face twisting with confusion. The golden surface beneath his feet pulsed violently, sending waves of energy through the chamber. The soldiers shouted, stumbling back as the air cracked with force. Daniel's heart pounded. He stepped forward, shouting over the noise. "Stop. It will not accept you. You cannot force it." But Rashid pressed on, trying to move forward across the arch. The light flared, blinding and fierce. A wave of energy surged outward, slamming against the walls and shaking the chamber. Rashid cried out and was thrown backward, landing hard on the stone floor. The glow of the bridge dimmed, settling back into a faint pulse. The soldiers rushed to their leader, but Daniel saw the fear in their eyes. The bridge had rejected him. Just as the Pharaoh had warned, it could not be taken by pride or power. Rashid rose slowly, his face pale, his voice low with anger. "What is this thing? Why did it not accept me?" Daniel stood tall, though fear twisted in his stomach. "Because it is not yours to claim. It is not for rulers or armies. It is for those who seek truth." Silence filled the chamber. The soldiers looked between their leader and the glowing bridge, unsure of what to believe. Daniel felt their eyes on him, waiting for what he would say next. He knew the moment had come. He had to make a choice. If he revealed everything, the world would soon know, and greed would spread faster than sand in the wind. But if he kept it secret, the bridge might close, and humanity would lose its chance forever. He looked at the arch, the golden glow steady and patient, as if waiting. He thought of the builder's words. The bridge is not a gift. It is a responsibility. Daniel drew in a slow breath. He realized the truth. The choice was not his alone. The choice belonged to all humanity. But he would have to be the one to speak first, to decide how the story began. The desert camp no longer felt like a place of discovery. It had turned into a guarded fortress. Soldiers patrolled the ruins, their boots crunching on the sand, their rifles ready. The glowing arch inside the chamber was now treated as a treasure of war. Daniel watched from the shadows of a tent, his mind restless. The bridge still pulsed faintly with golden light, waiting, watching. He knew the builders were aware of what was happening. They would not allow greed to twist their creation. Yet the men around him did not understand. They only saw power. Rashid sat inside a command tent, his face set in determination. Though the bridge had rejected him, he refused to accept defeat. He called for scientists, engineers, and even spiritual leaders, hoping someone would unlock its secrets. Daniel was forced to stay close, for Rashid believed he held the key. Days passed and more people arrived. Trucks carried equipment, tents spread wider across the sands, and whispers filled the camp. Some said the bridge was a weapon. Others believed it was a doorway to immortality. Fear and greed grew side by side. One evening, Daniel overheard two young soldiers talking near the chamber. Their voices were low, but the weight of their words struck him. "They say our leader will control the stars," one whispered. "But what if it destroys us instead?" The other replied. Daniel turned away, his heart heavy. The Pharaoh's warning was becoming real. The more hands that reached for the bridge, the closer humanity came to losing it forever. That night, Daniel was summoned by Rashid. The man's eyes were sharp, his tone commanding. "You will show us how to use it. You walked upon it and returned. That means you know its secret." Daniel stood firm. "I was allowed because I sought truth, not power. The bridge cannot be forced. If you try again with greed, it will close forever." Rashid's voice turned cold. "Then you will guide me until it accepts me. If you refuse, others will suffer for your silence." Daniel's chest tightened, but he met Rashid's gaze without fear. "The builders cannot be tricked. The bridge listens to the heart. If you walk with pride, it will throw you back." Rashid slammed his fist on the table, but Daniel did not flinch. The silence that followed was heavy. Finally, Rashid dismissed him, but Daniel knew the leader's patience was thin. The next day, new visitors arrived. These were not soldiers of Rashid, but foreign officials, sent by nations that had heard rumors of the discovery. Their aircraft circled the desert. Their banners carried symbols of different lands. Soon the camp was filled with tension. each group demanding a claim. Daniel saw the danger growing. If they fought over the bridge, blood would be spilled and the golden path would be stained with human pride. He thought of the builder's warning again. The bridge was not a gift. It was a responsibility. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the dunes, Daniel returned to the chamber. The guards at the entrance watched him but allowed him through. He stood before the glowing arch, the air humming softly around him. For a moment he closed his eyes. "Builders," he whispered. "What am I to do? Humanity is not ready. Yet if I stay silent, greed will consume us." The golden light seemed to brighten as though answering his call. His mind filled with a calm voice, not harsh but steady. "The path is for all, but only when all are ready. Guide them with truth. Guard the bridge until hearts learn humility." Daniel opened his eyes, a strange peace filling him. He now understood. His role was not to control the bridge, but to protect it from being lost. He had to become its guardian, whether humanity welcomed it or not. When he left the chamber, he found himself surrounded by Rashid's men. The leader himself stepped forward. "Enough secrets. Tomorrow the nations will gather here. They will demand answers. You will speak for us and show them how it works." Daniel knew what that meant. He would be forced to stand before the world, to reveal the truth of the Golden Bridge, but he also knew that truth could not be bent. If he spoke honestly, the greedy would try to seize it. If he stayed silent, war would follow. Either way, the world would change forever. That night, sleep would not come. Daniel stood outside watching the desert stars. He remembered the Pharaoh's spirit, who had carried the burden of the bridge in his time. The Pharaoh had chosen to hide it, fearing what men would do. Now the secret was uncovered again, and Daniel carried the same burden. At dawn, the gathering began. Representatives of many nations filled the chamber, their voices rising in argument. Soldiers of different flags stood side by side, yet none trusted the other. All eyes turned when Daniel stepped forward. Rashid raised his hand, his voice strong. "This man has walked the bridge and returned. He alone knows its secret. He will speak." The chamber grew silent. Daniel looked at the faces before him, leaders of power, men and women who carried the weight of nations. He thought of the builders, of the warning, of the path shining with patient light behind him. His voice was steady when he began. "This bridge is not a weapon. It is not a throne. It is a test. If you step upon it with greed, it will cast you out. If you treat it as power, it will close forever. Only those who walk with humility will find the path to the stars." Murmurs filled the chamber. Some scoffed, others looked uneasy. Rashid's eyes burned with anger, but Daniel did not stop. "You cannot own it. You cannot force it. It belongs to all humanity or to none at all." The words hung heavy in the air. For a moment no one spoke. Then the arguing began again, louder than before. Yet Daniel felt no fear. The truth had been spoken. The bridge had chosen him as its voice, and whatever came next, he would not let humanity's chance be lost. The chamber was filled with shouting voices. Leaders from across the world argued, pointing fingers at one another. Some demanded control, others promised alliances, and a few called for destruction of the Golden Bridge before it caused war. Soldiers stood tense, hands near their weapons, as if one wrong word could set the desert aflame. Daniel stood at the center of it all, his face calm though his heart raced. Behind him the Golden Bridge shimmered, waiting like a silent judge. He knew the builders were watching, even if no one else could feel their presence. He also knew this moment would decide the fate of the bridge forever. Rashid pushed through the crowd, his voice thundering above the noise. "Enough, this is no place for endless talk. The bridge belongs to us, to those who found it and protected it. Daniel, show them its power now, or you will not walk out of this chamber alive." The threat hung heavy in the air. Many eyes turned to Daniel, waiting to see what he would do. He felt the weight of the Pharaoh's warning pressing against him. If the bridge was used for pride or violence, it would vanish from the world, and humanity would lose its chance forever. He took a slow step forward, his hands open. "Listen to me. This bridge is not a prize to win. It is not a throne for kings. It is a test for all of us. If we fail it now, we may never see it again. You all came here for power. But what if the true power is not control, but the chance to rise together?" Some scoffed at his words, but others grew quiet. Daniel's voice grew stronger, steady with truth. The Pharaoh tried to guard this path in his time, and his people turned it into legend. Now it has returned to us. Will we make the same mistake? Will we let greed blind us to the gift before us? Rashid's face hardened. He drew closer, his words sharp. Enough riddles. Walk the bridge now and prove yourself. If you return with treasures or knowledge, then we will decide what to do. Daniel looked at the glowing arch. He knew this was the moment. If he stepped onto the bridge, it would answer, not just for him, but for all of humanity. He took a deep breath and placed one foot on the golden path. Light rose around him, filling the chamber. Gasps echoed as the bridge awakened, brighter than ever before. The leaders stepped back in awe, their arguments silenced. Rashid shielded his eyes, but his face twisted with hunger for what he saw. Daniel walked slowly, his heart clear, his mind steady. The bridge accepted him, lifting him into its glow. He felt himself carried beyond the desert, beyond the earth itself. Once more he stood in the vast hall of the builders, their tall forms shining with calm presence. Their voices entered his thoughts like gentle waves. You return again, guardian of the path. Humanity stands divided. What will you ask of us? Daniel bowed his head, though his voice was firm. Do not give this bridge to those who seek power. Hide it from the greedy. Keep it safe until humanity is ready to walk together, not as nations, but as one people. The builders were silent for a moment. Then one stepped forward, its form tall and radiant. Your words carry truth. Yet the path cannot remain open while hearts are filled with pride. We will not close it forever, but we will withdraw it until the time is right. Only then will the bridge return. Daniel's chest tightened. He had hoped for a chance to guide humanity, but deep inside he knew this was the only way. Better to wait than to lose the path forever. I understand, he said, but give them hope. Let them know this chance is not lost, only waiting. The builders raised their hands and the golden hall began to fade. So it shall be. You will return as witness. Guard the memory. Guard the truth. Light wrapped around Daniel and suddenly he was back in the chamber. The golden bridge shone brighter for a final moment, then its light began to fade. The golden arch crumbled slowly into dust until only the carved stone beneath remained. The murmurs of the crowd rose into panic. Rashid shouted in anger, rushing forward, but the bridge was gone. No power, no throne, no path. The soldiers looked at one another, uncertain. The leaders of nations stared at the empty space, silent in disbelief. Daniel turned to them, his voice calm but strong. The bridge is not destroyed. It is hidden. The builders will bring it back when we are ready. This was never about power. It was about unity. If we learn to walk as one, the golden path will open again. Some looked at him with doubt, others with anger, but a few faces showed something new, hope. Perhaps they understood, even if only a little. The camp broke apart in the days that followed. Nations withdrew their people, unable to claim what they could not control. Rashid vanished into the desert, his ambition defeated. The sand slowly covered the ruins once more, hiding the traces of what had been discovered. Daniel remained for a time, watching the stars each night. He felt the weight of silence, but also the promise of what was yet to come. The bridge was gone, but not forever. The builders had given humanity a chance, and he knew someday that chance would return. As the desert winds swept across the dunes, Daniel whispered into the night sky. When we are ready, we will walk the path again. And far beyond the stars, the builders watched, waiting for the day when humanity would finally rise as one and step across the Pharaoh's bridge of gold once more.